Now, let's continue to interrogate the arrest of the former president. He was taken into custody in the early hours of this morning to begin that 15-month prison sentence. Joining me now is lawyer Elisha Kunene from Richard Spoor Attorneys. Elisha, good afternoon. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Midday View here on eNCA, DSTV channel 403. Apparently, I got the name of the channel wrong a little bit earlier when I introduced a guest. On a very serious note, I have to make sure, otherwise my employer is not going to be happy with me. Okay, Elisha, just on a legal thing, we are analyzing what happened ahead of the arrest. The arrest has taken place from a legal perspective. It was very clear from that constitutional court order that the arrest had to be effected.
Yes, that's true. And the order of the court had actually demanded that he would have handed himself in already a few days ago. And then they had the additional deadline for the police to effect the arrest if that became necessary. It appears that he did hand himself in just before the police's deadline itself hit. But late of his own deadline that the court had sent. And yes, the constitutional court's order was unequivocal about what was expected of him.
Yes, I guess the uncertainty was caused by that application to the Pietermaritzburg High Court, whose judgment was reserved until tomorrow, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But ordinarily, we wouldn't expect the High Court to overturn a decision of the highest court in the land, of a court above it, or any lower court for the matter, to overturn a decision by a higher court.
That's very true. I think everyone's expectation is that the High Court will find that it doesn't have jurisdiction. But it feels as though the former president's legal team was sort of just hedging their bets because since they're unable to appeal, they've made the application for rescission before the Constitutional Court, which has now been argued. But then they also tried their luck in the High Court to buy a bit more time. And I think that was successful in creating enough confusion that even the Minister of Police and the SAPS was uncertain about what is now required, and even a lot of people who are legal practitioners were unsure about what that meant and whether the president would actually be going into custody yesterday. But ultimately, it feels that not much is now going to turn on that High Court order. And it certainly would be novel and unexpected for the High Court to want to interfere with a fairly unambiguous judgment of the Constitutional Court.
We'll see what Justice Mnguni will say tomorrow. We're all waiting, but I guess it will be in line with that. But Monday is the day that the Constitutional Court then agreed to hear the former president's case again in terms of this matter. What can we expect? Realistically, he's now behind bars, starting to serve that 15-month jail sentence. But yes, the matter is pending to be heard again because he did write to them. They said, okay, we'll hear you on the 12th of July. What can we realistically expect?
You mean in the Constitutional Court?
Yes.
Oh, so because the argument has in the High Court has taken place, and now the Constitutional Court will hear the question of rescission. And realistically, you'd expect if you saw the High Court argument, it was an uphill battle for the president's legal team, and I would expect their time in the Constitutional Court to be even more difficult, especially because a rescission in law is meant for such narrow grounds, typically, where an error has been made or certain information wasn't available to the parties, and they now realize that this is a decision which would not have been made if these facts were fully present. But realistically, what President Zuma is attempting to do is, in effect, appeal and ask the court to reconsider their decision and on the basis of things that they already did consider, because he took the advice to not participate when the Constitutional Court invited him to make submissions either to defend himself or when he was invited to make submissions on sentence. And having foregone that opportunity, he now asks the court to rescind its judgment, and that's really not what a rescission law is meant for, but also is not introducing anything that the court wouldn't have already had the opportunity to consider before making the decision in the first place. So,
Elisha, so how would you describe the chances of success? From what you've just said, they seem to be very slim. You've used the words as well that it's going to be an uphill battle for his legal team on Monday.
The chances, I believe the chances are incredibly slim. I think so there's been some speculation I've seen going around. Some people are speculating that, just by even hearing it, they might make, even worse findings because the judgment finding him in contempt was, very long and very emphatic about how his behavior had been unacceptable and how that had all been unprecedented, which is what led to what was an unusually or unexpectedly harsh sentence for contempt. And to the extent that I think it would be fair to, if you follow that reasoning, to say that the reasoning of this current litigation continues along the same pattern of stalling, of engaging in bad faith, as it were. And it means that things could become even worse for the president. But my guess is that the court just wanted to grant finality to this question, to the extent that the team was clinging to the fact, and in the media, his representatives were clinging to the fact that there isn't certainty. He hasn't exhausted all of his legal avenues, and where, the Constitutional Court is usually a court of last resort, it would have the power to rescind its own order if it made a manifest error. But as I've said, that's clearly not the case here. And it feels like an answering affidavit or an appeal a little too late. So the chances are very slim.
Oh, well expressed and well articulated. Thank you very much, Elisha Kunene. We're not lawyers, but we get the gist of this thing. It's going to be an uphill battle. That's Elisha Kunene from Richard Spoor Attorneys. It's going to be an uphill battle. Chances are slim for success by the former president come Monday. We'll have to wait to see.